All right. We are live with an experiment. This is just, we're going to talk about anything and everything tonight. We have opened up the stream. So if you go to our Twitter account at Critical Blast, you will find a link that will bring you right in here, and you can promote your comic book, your novel, your music, your television program, if you've got one of those, your independent film, whatever you've got. We're here to talk about it tonight. We'll be here as long as y'all want to be here. So until people start showing up and following the link, I'm just going to talk about stuff that we're doing here at Critical Blast. Hi, I am your host, RJ Carter, managing editor here at Critical Blast, also the author of The Destroyer, Monumental Terror, and also Bully Pulpit and Continental Divide. If you are familiar with Remo Williams' Destroyer series by Warren Murphy and Richard Sapir, then you already know who I'm talking about. And if you're not, then you might want to check it out. It's a pretty cool series. Sorry, excuse my corona. No, I'm fine. Kidding. I just needed the YouTube flag because I haven't had one. The Destroyer novels follow Remo Williams, who is an agent of the United States government. He works for an agency called CURE. That agency is two people. They report to nobody but the president, and the only thing the president can do is disband them. They are fully authorized to operate outside the Constitution to defend the Constitution. And as such, they find themselves pitted against all kinds of nefarious threats that are more than not over the top. It's a satirical book of all things, as much as it is an adventure series. If you like Marvel's Iron Fist, that's pretty much an offshoot of The Destroyer. The Destroyer novels began in the early 70s, like 1971, and the first novel was actually written in the late 60s, back when martial arts were this sort of mysterious, magical thing for Americans. And to have, the white American go take the training from the Far East and bring it home and become the chosen one. That started, that's here, that's this, that began here. So that's the origin of that trope pretty much. At Critical Blast, however, we've been publishing some of our own things. First of which would be our short story anthology, Gods and Services. This is, of course, the publisher's proof. That's why we have the banner across here. This is not for resale, and it kind of goes right across the title, which didn't work out as well as I'd hoped. Obviously, if you go to Amazon and get your copy, link in the description below. It will not have that. It will just have this nice little wraparound storefront cover. And the reason we have a storefront cover on here is because Gods and Services is this little magical store that pops up here and there, and it sells out-of-service gods. It shows up, somebody walks in, they buy a knickknack, there's a god attached to it, and then that god impacts their life, maybe for the better, maybe an attempt for the better, but always with mixed results. This was an anthology. We had 10 different people sending stories into this one. We had Ross Baxter, Ira Bloom, who is best known for his scholastic novel, Hearts and Other Body Parts, Laura J. Campbell, Aristo Kouvaras, John Delarose, David J. Peterson, Zach Smith, Michael Tierney, and Catherine Traylor. Fun collection, and we have another collection coming up soon that I'm going to talk about. But first, I want to get to the next book that we published. This came out Halloween time, and we're looking at getting this into paperback here real soon, paperback and e-print for those who absolutely have to have an e-reader kind of experience. I prefer paper, and I really like the hardcover. This is our first young adult superhero novel And I want to emphasize that it is novel. It is not a graphic novel. So if you're looking for that kind of thing, hopefully some of our guests will be on here tonight talking about their graphic novels. Bulletproof is by Stephen J. Mitchell, and it follows the adventures of young high school student Cody Haywood, who wakes up on his 16th birthday to find out that he is, in fact, as the title suggests, bulletproof. Now, Cody has an attention deficit disorder that's undiagnosed, and he requires the help of his friends to stay focused on things. So it's difficult for him to embark on his superhero career because of this. It's very lighthearted and yet very serious at the same time. The threats are very real. Cody kind of goes into it with this Spider-Man-like attitude. He's very throwing out the quips. His friends are very funny. He thinks he's funnier than he is, and his friends kind of let him know that he's not so much. So if you like the classic approach to the young superhero, just getting his footing and finding out his way in the world of being a superhero, then Bulletproof Origins is the first of three. Mitchell's working on the next one right now, and probably have that in hardcover right about the same time we go into softcover or shortly thereafter. So I mentioned that we had another anthology coming up here, and that is going to be right around the corner. We are looking at a launch date of July 1st for that, and that will be a collection of 20 short stories. So it's going to be double the amount of content of Gods and Services, and it's called The Devil You Know. Now, The Devil You Know is going to be almost completely stories of people who have close encounters with Lucifer, Beelzebub, Old Scratch, whatever you want to call him. And sometimes it's a contract, sometimes it's a pact, sometimes it's just a deal, sometimes it's just coffee. But it's a mix. It's a wonderfully mixed bag of stories here. And there's horror, there's comedy, there's American folktale. It's just, it runs the gamut, and every single one of them is a quality, high quality piece. I really think you're going to enjoy that. We're going to have links up there. Of course, I'm going to be promoting the heck out of it just as soon as we get a cover in for it. That should be here any day now. That's the very last thing I'm waiting on. The body of the book is already fully formatted, ready to go. It's 264 pages in a 5x8 format. It will be paperback. You'll probably run around $16.99 on Amazon. Of course, Amazon's going to discount that some, so at least they usually do. I'm sure they will do it again. And we will be going through Ingram to distribute. So you will also be able to get this in your local brick and mortar bookstore. Please do ask for them. I'll ask your library to get you a copy of it if you absolutely can't get to a bookstore for it. Other things we have coming up tonight. We have a review, a DVD review will be forthcoming here shortly. We have received our 4K Blu-ray copy of Top Gun. And I forgot how simple that story was. It really is just, I fly planes and I like this girl. And it just kind of hops around from thing to thing. But it's such a fun visual movie. And the interactions that you see, while it may not be this contiguous flowing building story, Top Gun's a fun book. Also, in the line of our old material videos that we're going to review, much like we've done with the wall of graphic. No, you can't see that. The wall of graphic novels behind me, where I just pick stuff up and work off of it, like Batman, Son of the Demon. We'll be doing Chuck Dixon's Robin and going through that here within the next week. This would be, of course, the first Robin miniseries by Chuck Dixon, and the first 3 appearances of Tim Drake before that miniseries in Batman Identity Crisis, Without Fear of Consequence, and Master of Fear by Alan Grant, Norm Breyfogle, and Steve Mitchell. Not the same Steve Mitchell who did Bulletproof, by the way. If he is, he and I are going to have to talk, and I need another signature. But I was always a fan of Robin. And additionally to that, we will follow it up with Batman Earth 1. By far, probably my favorite version of Batman, because he is such a fallible and real world character in these hardcover graphic novels. I really wish that Jeff Johns and Gary Frank had been given the wherewithal to do a third one and to continue the other Earth 1 novels. And if we get enough people, we'll do a giveaway. This is Alice's Journey Beyond the Moon. This was my first novel, published with Telos in the UK. And we have some hardcovers here that are slightly dinged. That's why I've got them for giveaway. I thought that was on the cover. No, unfortunately, that is the cover. But it's still part of the signed and numbered limited edition. There were 200 of these. It's got my signature as well as Lucy's signature, who did all the artwork inside. These regularly go for about $40, and makes that hardcover. We will be doing a giveaway on some of the streams coming up here in the future. And speaking of streams, we have those coming up as well. Tomorrow night, we will be talking with the team from Battle Brick Road. So that's another Indiegogo that has already met its goal. They don't need us to promote it, but they're going to be on here talking about it, and we'll get to discuss exactly what it is that they're doing there with their little Oz takeoff. It looks great. The art is absolutely fantastic. And then, not quite scheduled yet, but we will have a day and a time very soon. We are going to be celebrating the 20th anniversary of Tarot, Witch of the Black Rose, with Jim Ballant and Holly Golightly from Broadsword Comics. And we definitely hope that you'll all be here for that. And then finally, some more giveaways that we will be having. If you just want to hit us up at our Twitter account, at Critical Blast, we will be happy to send you one of these holofoil stickers with the Critical Blast badge and logo on it, where pop culture gets blasted. All we'll do is just pop that in an envelope. You let us know where you want us to send it, and we will get one right out to you. If I run out, I will just order more. These come from Sticker Mule. If you ever need to get stickers for your business, labels, magnets, we heartily recommend our friends at Sticker Mule. You'll get great deals and you'll get great product. And no, they did not pay me to say that. I just really do like the folks at Sticker Mule. So what will I do now that I've gone through promoting all of our stuff and we did not get our guest, Huda Hucknose, following our open live stream call on Twitter? I thought for sure that would at least be hammered by spammers, but no such luck. We are sitting here with nobody taking advantage of an open stream. And believe me, streams are much easier to run when there's somebody to talk to other than yourself. I mean, I could put on, puppet shows with Cecil's head, but he doesn't have anything to drink, so that would not be the most entertaining Cecil that you've ever seen. So we might just wrap it up early. It's close to 15 minutes. We'll hang out just a little bit longer here. Perhaps I'll do something I've been toying with the idea of for a while now, which would be live reading. I think I'll do that. This is The Destroyer, Monumental Terror. This is book number 153 in the series. And no, you don't have to have the first 152 to understand what it is, but believe me, the publishers would definitely love it if you would run out and get those. They are available, of course, in ebook format, most of them. And I believe number one, The Destroyer 1, Created the Destroyer by Murphy and Sapir is available as an ebook for free. So, first hit's free, and then you get hooked. So I'm going to start with chapter 1 here. I read this at a convention, so this was a lot of fun. I might just read the first couple of chapters. We'll see if anybody shows up, and if not, well, I do try to be entertaining. Chapter 1. Tom Janos drummed his fingertips against each other as he endured the girl's babbling. He already knew where her story was headed when she told him where she had gone for dinner, but she never used 10 words when she could use 50. Tom had learned long ago that the best way to keep his people in line was to let them tell their stories in their own ways. Even so, it took him every ounce of effort to refrain from throttling her. He nodded with concern, never taking his eyes off hers as she continued prattling breathlessly. "So I finished my chicken sandwich," Marissa Meyer said. "I didn't get a hamburger because I don't eat meat, even though they've sold billions of them, so they must, be okay. The chicken sandwich wasn't as good. I mean, it probably wasn't as good as the ones they sell at the place across the street, but that place has the most awful policies about reproductive health care for their employees, and how could I in good conscience eat food that, oppresses women, you know?" "Of course," said Tom, with beatific patience. "Well," she continued, "I stepped out and was looking right at that other place and thinking about those poor women who work for them and can't get abortions or even the pill when 2 buses started unloading. And I was just offended that they were going to make so much money from that crowd when there was a perfectly good hamburger place across the street that served chicken sandwiches and even hired black people. And I wouldn't have gone over there at all except I saw..." Here she started to chew on her fingernail nervously. Tom pursed his lips. "Marissa," he said, "go on. What disturbed you?" The girl, Marissa Meyer, looked up at the serene face of the leader of the protest group, the man who had offered her a place in line, a sign to hold, and $25 a day plus meals and lodging so she and others could demand justice. Justice coming in the form of removing a 100-year-old statue of a Confederate soldier. Tom Janos's dark hair was slicked to one side, and his blue eyes looked not so much at her as through her. But he was a good man, she knew. Such a good man, in fact, that she couldn't make sense of what she had seen. "What did you see?" Tom asked. "I saw the buses unloading," she said meekly, "and those people on the bus, they had shirts, and those awful red hats that said 'Make patriotism fashionable again.' Some of them even had little flags with them. And not rainbow or Mexican ones, but actual American flags. Well, I knew right away they must have come here to cause trouble." "They probably did," Tom said. "That's why I couldn't figure out why you were with them," she said. Tom arched an eyebrow. "You must be mistaken," he said. "I've been here all evening, meeting with other marchers, making sure they know when things happen, what they can say and do, and how to avoid getting arrested. It must have been someone who looked like me. You were across the street, after all." "I was," she said. "But then I wasn't. I mean, I went over because I knew that it couldn't be you. I mean, it couldn't. But I had to be sure. And I stayed quiet because I didn't want to let any of them know I was here to have that awful monument to racism removed, because there were just so many of them." "You went over to meet them," Tom repeated, trying to keep Marissa from veering off topic again. He stood and walked to the window of his room and looked out over the parking lot of the hotel. The city of Little Rock was clearly visible to the west, not so much as a skyline, but as a cluster. The man upstairs had been right. These southern cities were powder kegs, ready and waiting to be lit. That was what made protests in the South different from protests in New England or the Pacific Northwest. The people of Dixie actually cared about their flags, statues, and way of life. "Yes, sir, I did." "And then what?" "Well, I went up to the man that looked like you, and he turned around, and then I was sure it was you." Marissa wrinkled her nose up in confusion, widening her nostrils in the process so that the backside of her nose piercings was visible. "So I said, 'Excuse me, Mr. Janos?' And he looked at me and he said, 'Can I help you, darling?' He said it just like that, like he was from Texas or something." "He did he?" Tom said. "Well, that's very strange." "Do you think they know we're here?" Marissa said. "Maybe they know you hired us, And they went out and got a look-alike to confuse people? Tom Janos spun around, displaying a theatrical, shocked expression. Goodness, do you think they might be that clever? He asked, his eyes wide with surprise. Maybe, she exclaimed, caught up in the energy of his performance. Do you think we should let everybody know, just to be careful? Oh, definitely not, Tom said. He walked over and squatted down in front of her. You haven't told anyone else so far, have you? His eyes bored into hers, so pale and clear blue. No, Marissa said. I ran right back here to the hotel to tell you. And here you were, so I guess it really couldn't have been you. That's right, Marissa, Tom said. It wasn't me. Now listen carefully. Don't tell anybody. You're probably right about their plans, but they don't know we know, do they? He winked. If we keep this secret, keep it from getting out, we can turn it back on them, throw them into disarray, right? Marissa's eyes widened. Oh, that's brilliant, Mr. Janos. They could think you were their look-alike. You could tell them to turn around and go the other way, or let us up in front, or even send them all back home. You are so smart. Well, I get by, he said modestly. He took her by the hand and stood her up. Now, Marissa, it's important we keep this a secret, you understand? I want you to go straight to your room for the night. Talk to nobody. In the morning, go with everyone to the park as though none of this happened. Okay, but can't I help with the shh? He put his finger to her lips. You don't have to do anything but focus on holding signs and chanting lines, he said. Leave everything else to me. Marissa Mayer flushed, a pinkness spreading across her cheeks that almost matched that of the homemade crocheted cap she wore. She paused in the expectation of something more, but Tom went briskly to the door and held it open. Obediently she left and went straight to her room without speaking another syllable. When she was out of sight, Tom Janos put out the Do Not Disturb sign and turned the deadbolt. Then he took a sticky note with the logo of the hotel chain from the desk and placed it over the door's peephole before taking out his cell phone and tapping in a number. After a few rings, the screen lit up to a streaming video and a face identical to that of Tom Janos. What's up, little brother? The face said. Tom smirked. Little by 4 minutes, Bob, he said, and only because you pushed me out of the way. Still counts. Tom's face quickly turned serious. We have a small problem. He recounted the story Marissa Mayer had told him in a matter of moments. They do have the best chicken sandwiches, Bob Janos said when he was done. I know, Tom said. Next time you get this group, I had to eat kale salad with pine nuts. I can send you over spicy chicken sandwich, Bob offered. Tom considered the offer for a brief moment. Maybe later, he said. What should we do about the girl? I remember her, said Bob. Figured she wanted to sleep with me, but got too intimidated. Pretty sure she wants to sleep with me, Tom said. Then let her, Bob replied, but better do it quick. I say we remove her, just to be safe. If you want, I've got a few true believers on this side who are just itching to put a fascist fighter in a hole in the ground. Of course, we should get clearance on that first. Tom nodded. My thoughts exactly. I'll call you back. He disconnected the call and dialed in another number from memory. This one answered on the first ring. There was no video. Tom related the story again, even more tersely than he had with his brother. What would you like us to do? He asked when finished. The electronically masked voice gave a 2-word response, then disconnected. Immediately, Tom called Bob again. We have clearance, he said. He unfolded his map of the park where the protests were planned. On the other end, Bob was doing the same. Here's where she'll be. Roger Whitman was hardcore. If you did not believe him, he would show you his fists. He had the words tattooed onto his hands, 1 letter per knuckle. Unfortunately, he had done it himself, so what read hardcore to him when he looked at his fists read core hard to anyone else who saw them. Roger Whitman believed in America, the real America he was trying to take back, the white America, before all the blacks and Mexicans came over to take all their benefits and jobs. The good America, where men worked, women made babies, and pansies and fairies were taken on rides from which they did not come back. He believed that even today, even after his wife got infected with feminist ideas, like that he drank too much and hit her too many times, and took it into her head to run off with the kids, his kids. These thoughts ran through his mind as he looked out over the dashboard at the crowd of hippy-dippy faggots trying to erase the history of his America. Most of these self-styled fascist fighters were too chicken shit to even show their faces, hiding behind bandanas and plastic Halloween masks. But Roger was not being paid to look at them, so he forced himself to look past them, toward the grove of trees just beyond the curb. Just as he had been told, there was the girl. She was holding up the big pink sign with white letters of all the nerve, proclaiming her message: make an impact on racism. Making an impact is exactly what Roger had in mind as he stomped on the gas pedal and shifted the SUV into drive. Roger knew the plan: spot the girl, hit the tree behind the girl, get cushioned by the airbags, get arrested, plead self-defense. It was a perfect plan. And it was a perfect plan. Roger just did not know all of it. The crowd scattered as he accelerated into it. Some of them screamed, some of them smacked his hood as he plowed through, but they all got out of the way. Roger laughed as they ran, the way cockroaches skittered away when a light was turned on. Yards ahead, Marissa Meyer held her sign just the way she had been told, surrounded by others who were peacefully throwing glass bottles at the police and counter-protesters. She stared with disbelief at the approaching vehicle. Surely someone was going to stop it, right? It could not be allowed to just drive over the curb, and onto the grass, and into her, and then the tree. Roger carried out the plan to the letter, playing his part perfectly, even the part he did not know about, which involved flying through the windshield. As his face smashed the glass, he briefly wondered why the airbags had not gone off the way Bob Janos promised they would. That was supposed to be the plan, after all. As Roger Whitman lay bleeding out, yards away, a crowd quickly formed around Marissa Meyer. Her mouth gaped open as the grill of the SUV squashed her midsection against the thick trunk of the tree behind her. Her blood pooled at the roots and tires. Across the street, Bob Janos grimly observed the chaos. The plan, his plan, had worked just as expected. Now there was nobody alive who would learn Marissa Meyer's secret, and nobody alive to learn why Roger Whitman was instructed to mow her down. Chapter 2. His name was Remo, and he was crossing the Oregon border into Mexico. The streets of Portland were still visible through the bars of the wrought iron fence surrounding the Mexican consulate, an impenetrable wall demarcating the land on one side as Mexican sovereign territory, separate and segregated from the United States. The irony was not lost on him. Dressed in a tight-fitting black t-shirt and black chinos, Remo Williams was a shadow flitting rapidly up the iron bars, a shadow that quickly flipped over the spiked top, dropped noiselessly on the other side, and was gone. The distance from the fence to the main structure was easily covered in a few paces, and the stucco exterior was almost insultingly easy to grip as Remo pressed his body against the wall and began scaling his way upward, sometimes sideways, sometimes diagonally, until he reached the window he was looking for. With his right hand gripping the wall, he spread the fingers of his left hand and placed it against the glass. His fingertips slightly curved, he swiveled his wrist back and forth, his nails leaving white trails on the glass like ice skates on a frozen pond, until he had carved a perfect circle in the glass. When he was satisfied with the results, he gently tapped the upper portion of the circle. As the glass tumbled inward, his hand darted into the freshly made hole and caught the falling circle between his thumb and index finger, drawing it back out the window and slipping it into his pocket. Then, reaching once more into the window, he slowly moved his open palm in an arc, feeling for the tingle of the electronic alarm system. Finding the wire he sought, he traced it with his fingertip until he found where the magnetic receiver was mounted. With a quick snap, he cracked both sides of the magnetic sensor from the window, keeping the two halves together as he set them quietly on the sill. The alarm now disabled, he silently unlocked the window, pushed it up, and slid inside as softly as a breeze. Hector Suarez snored lightly, his arm draped across the bare back of the dark-haired woman sleeping beside him. Remo placed his hand against the side of her neck and gently pressed, ensuring her sleep would be uninterrupted for a few more hours. Then he patted Hector's cheek. "Wakey, wakey, eggs and bakey." Hector woke with a start. The face looking down at him was like death. The skin was pulled tight against the cheekbones. The eyes were sunk deep beneath the brow. His first instinct was to call for a guard, but the man's hand flashed out, and the tips of his fingers brushed across Hector's throat. Hector grabbed his neck with both hands, then pulled them away to inspect his palms for blood. There was none, yet he could not muster a whisper. No need to get excited, Hector, Remo said. I'm just here to praise you on your business acumen and philanthropy. Hector mouthed, "Okay," but no sound came out. Remo held up his hand. You don't have to thank me, he said. I'm honored, truly. It's quite the thing you've done, saving all those people. Hector tried to sit up, but he was thrust forcefully back onto the mattress. The nubile girl next to him did not stir. I must insist on you letting me sing your praises just a little more, Remo said pleasantly. I mean, it's not every day one meets someone who's changed as many lives as you have. He sat on the edge of the bed. I imagine all those girls can't speak highly enough of you. Hector tried to push himself back up, to fight or to run, but his arms would not cooperate. He tried thrusting his torso forward into a sitting position, only to be quickly and firmly pushed back down with a palm to the forehead. As I was saying, Remo continued, I applaud your altruism. I mean, you had diplomatic immunity and clear passage to Mexico. Surely there was a way you could use that to help somebody, right? And by golly, you found the way. All those regular trips with no border crossing checks? That's just screaming for things to be brought across the border with you, isn't it? Remo grabbed Hector's scalp and forced his head forward and backward in a nod. Say, yes, it is. Hector moved his lips, but no sound came out. Now, a lot of guys in your position, they'd bring in drugs or guns, Remo said. I mean, that's easy money, right? But that's not very charitable, is it? No, you're a better man than that. You've seen firsthand the crappy conditions those people have to live in, and you could get them out of that so easily. Remo clapped his hands together, softly and silently. I applaud you, sir. Well done. He reached over and put 2 fingers to the side of Hector's larynx and pressed until it popped. Hector coughed. Gracias, he wheezed. You deserve it, Remo said warmly. All those girls, so eager to have an opportunity, and it didn't hurt that they were so pretty, did it? He winked. Are you? Hector rasped. He swallowed, trying to erase the soreness in his throat. Are you wanting in? Wanting a special order? Oh, no, Remo said. I've already got a job, and I'm not really in the market for what you're selling. That is, what you're doing with the girls, right? Selling them? Sure, you bring them to America, just like you promised them, but then you exchange them for cash to someone who takes them right back out, smooth as silk. Hector was confused. The man was obviously a threat, but he was talking about what a good job Hector was doing, and he did not want to muscle in on Hector's business, which Hector would have allowed until he could have the man killed. The man did not even want a girl, which Hector could not believe. A boy? Hector asked. I can get you a boy. I can get you lots of boys. Good price, too. Remo smiled grimly and shook his head. You don't understand, Hector. You had a great business model, taking desperate ladies out of little shithole countries and finding them homes in slightly less shithole countries. Everybody wins and nobody complains. See, that's my business. I'm the complaint department, and nobody ever said a word to me until you got greedy. No, Hector croaked. No, never. My prices are always fair. Sure, Remo said. I mean, if anyone ever had a fair price on a human life, it was you. But somewhere along the way, you noticed your supply chain was only profitable in one direction. You were coming back fully packed, but going down with an empty load. That's a wasted trip. Money on the table, right? So, being an enterprising entrepreneur, you figured you'd work the system both directions and start taking American girls south of the border. The embassy has lots of parties, right? You invite stupid young kids off the street, pretty girls looking to be actresses or models, and offer them a chance to see Margaritaville up close and personal? Who would turn that down? Remo's gaze turned serious. And once down there, he said, you sell them off to your warlords, drug cartel honchos, and other run-of-the-mill bad hombres. He wagged his finger at Hector. Hence the complaints, he stood. My department. Complaints, Hector rasped. I have had no complaints, senor. No, you wouldn't have, Remo said, pacing along the side of the bed. You see, I work for a sort of anonymous consumer affairs organization. They're like the Better Business Bureau, only better, and a lot stricter. And they don't really like it when someone starts carting our citizens away to other countries against their will. That's when they send in someone like me. Well, Just me, actually. Remo spoke the truth. The agency he worked for, Cure, consisted of only two people, himself and the man who gave him his missions. It had been that way ever since the day Remo had found his police career cut short, having been framed for the murder of a drug dealer and summarily executed. But the execution was a sham, orchestrated by Cure so that Remo could become a man who did not exist. Trained by the ancient master of Sinanju, Chun, Remo Williams was now the deadliest man alive, and a practitioner of the most revered form of public service in all history, assassination. I can't move my arms. Oh, right, said Remo. That's not really fair, is it? Here, let me. Remo placed his palms on both shoulders and shifted them upward, releasing the nerve clusters he had pinched off earlier. Hector grunted as a dull pain flowed down both arms, and he curled his fingers to test his mobility. There you go, Remo said. Good as new. He patted Hector on the chest twice. You'll never. Hector sat up, possibly with the intention of confronting this Diablo Misterioso, when his chest suddenly felt like a bowling ball had been dropped inside it. ¿Qué? All part of the service, Remo said. It's hard to be an assassin who doesn't exist if you leave a trail of obvious bodies behind you. Believe me, a messy job just means a lot of cleanup. And I hate cleaning up. Hector coughed, then gasped for air as he beat his fist against his sternum. Por favor, he pleased. See, I was never here, Remo continued, and you simply made the mistake of overestimating your ability to keep up with this lovely young thing you brought to your bed tonight. He picked up the phone from the nightstand beside Hector's bed, and in your panic, you fumbled with the numbers on your phone, but couldn't make your fingers work, so you used it the best way you could to summon help. Remo sent the phone hurtling toward the window he had come in, shattering it and obliterating the neat circular hole he had cut into it. Remo looked curiously at the window as if he had expected more. Oh, right, he said. He slapped his forehead in a show of forgetfulness. How silly of me. The alarm's off. As Hector's last breath rattled in his chest, he saw the thin man in black pick up the magnetic trigger for the window alarm and pull the two pieces apart, breaking the circuit and setting off the jangling alarm system. Within moments, a trio of guards burst through Hector's bedroom door, finding the diplomatic envoy lifeless and alone, save for the deeply tanned naked teenager who slept peacefully through the chaos. There was no indication anyone else had ever been in the room. Okay, so that is a taste of Remo Williams, the most current novel out there, Monumental Terror, by me, R.J. Carter, with Warren Murphy and Richard Sapir. And if you like that kind of thing, you can find that on Amazon. You can find that, just go to any of your bookstores and ask them for The Destroyer. Pick up the entire run. They're a lot of fun. They've been going on for years, and there's a nice little fan base behind them. So that they know what they're doing at that publishing house. And if you can't find them, then just hit me up, hit me in the comments, and I will help you locate them. I think that's all we're going to do tonight. This has been interesting. I should have advertised maybe a little bit earlier. I did kind of put it out at the last minute that we'd be doing an open live stream. So if an open live stream is ever to be in the future again, I'll probably advertise it in the morning, and then we'll have all day for people to realize that it's out here. For now, I am R.J. Carter. This is Critical Blast, and we're gone.